Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Gufic Biosciences Limited Investor Meet. At this moment, all participants are in the listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question and answer session. At that time, you may click on the Q&A tab on the left-hand side of your panel to ask a live question. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Pranav Choksi, CEO from Gufic Biosciences Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So, good afternoon. I think fellow, I would say, investors and friends who have been interested in Gufic all this long. Firstly, I just like to confirm with Stephen once again. Stephen, I hope my audio quality is fine, so I'll proceed to the presentation.
Yes, sir, we can hear you clearly. You may proceed.
All right, thank you. So, I'm Pranav Choksi. I'm the CEO of Gufic Biosciences Limited. I'm basically a B Farm. I did my undergrad from Unicity, and then I did my MSc in biotechnology from Johns Hopkins, United States. And I have been with Gufic as professionally involved since the last, I would say, 13 years, 13 to 14 years. And today, thank you all for sparing your valuable time and coming over and trying to try to get to know a bit more about our company and what we do. So without wasting further time, I would like to go straight to the presentation, which we have already circulated a couple of days earlier to you all, and I'll try to focus on what we are, what we do, and what is going to be our future prospects, and what are the key, I would say, strength areas of our company, which we are going to focus on. So we have made a very generic tagline that Gufic is moving the right direction, and our main focus is, of course, delivering care and cure. Well, let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, slide. So, of course, as before I start, I just have to give you a little bit of insight into the Q4, which we have just gone for. But this will have more relevance once I tell you about the entire company. So, allow me to come back to the first few slides once I finish the entire introduction about the company as such. So just to give you a brief that we have been, of course, awarded as one of the fastest growing research-based domestic companies in India, especially because of our presence in the critical care space. We have a few highlights that in 2015 is the time where we have started our journey more of from a CMO to an Indian I would say marketing angle, and then proceeding to, of course, countries beyond India. This slide just shows the relevance that apart from being a strong domestic player, which we have made our strength in the last 4 to 5 years, our major focus has been lyophilization, which is that is where our core competency is lyophilized products. Nowadays, some people might feel that it's more or less a commodity, but just to give you a perspective, we have been doing these lyophilized injectables since the last, I would say, around 40 years, actually more than 40 years. And that is where the strength of economic of scale, the product pipeline, and also, I would say, the geographical advantage, that is what is available to us. Just to give you a point, we have,
Mr. Choksi?
Yes.
Sir, we are unable to see your video. If you can just turn on your webcam, please.
Okay, I apologize. I'm sorry that I'm new to all this, so please excuse me for that. Is it visible now?
No, sir, not yet.
I think I can see myself. Is it visible now?
You may proceed, sir.
Okay. So, as I say, the most important thing would be just to show our ranking, which is a part of the IMS IQVIA ranking, where we have gone from 165 in 2015 to 86 in the current year. That is what we like to highlight here. Again, to focus on what we do right now, we have actually 4 main, I would say, SBUs or strategic business units. The first one being domestic business, which I just spoke about. And that is shown because of the strength in critical care. But we are very frankly much more than critical care, and I'll explain that as we come in the forthcoming slides. We have very clearly 8 well-defined divisions, all the way from critical care to a newest division known as Aesthederm, which is related to facial aesthetics and also overall skin care. Overall, we have a field force of more than now 1100 people. Actually, I mentioned 1000, but now just since yesterday, I just got a number. We are 1100 field force, and we have product portfolio in various therapy areas, which again I'll explain as we go in the future slides. I would say historically, in the thing where I entered Gufic, we have been a strong contract manufacturing player, and that has been our strength, which has helped us to take the products not only for India but also for countries beyond India. And that is where I will again talk about the contract manufacturing base in the future slides. API business of Gufic is something which we are, we always were historically and legacy wise. But in the last 2 to 3 years, keep seeing the, I would say, geopolitical issues and seeing the dependency which we have on certain imports, a strategic decision has been made by us to focus on certain APIs where we are backward integrated. So all the way from, entering a European market to the API being made, or we want the entire, I would say, the channel or the chain to be, inherently independent. And that is where the API business plays a big role. International business is something which we have entered since the last, I would say, 4 years to 5 years. When I mean international business, we were always there in the legacy part of, the Southeast Asian markets and South America to some extent, but an organized approach to the international business was taken in the last, I would say, the effort started, of course, 6-7 years ago, and the revenue started coming in the last 4 to 5 years. Apart from India, Germany is, of course, the main country of, I would say, the main next second big country for us in terms of revenue. But now with other further markets opening up, as I will elaborate in the future slides, we are here to increase our global footprint. So just to tell you in a nutshell about the capabilities of manufacturing what we have, being a strong contract manufacturing, player, our base was always our strength, and that is where we have seen that, starting with a small base of 50,000 vials way back in 2007, 2008 to right now almost 40 lakh vial or 4 million base per month of lyophilized vial is something which we are very proud of. And this could not have been possible just overnight. It was because of a combination of strong R&D pipeline, good, entry into new geographical areas, and also increasing the entire product basket. So what we get into is, once we get into anti-infective, for example, we want to be present for the entire spectrum of all the antibiotics or all the antifungals or all the antivirals which are normally available in the entire spectrum of treatment, be it gram positive, gram negative. So again, of course, the strength right now, if you ask me, would be lyophilized vial manufacturing base of 4 million vials, I would say, on a monthly basis, or 40 million and more than 40 million vials on an annual basis, but backed up by new drug delivery systems. Like, when we go for life saving, we have now entered into, facilities of PFS and dual chamber syringes, dual chamber bags, and also we are working on, depot injections, liposomal injections, and, nanotechnology, I would say anti-tumor drugs. So it's more of application of lyophilization and the strength which we have of manufacturing into new drug delivery systems. That's how I would put it. Of course, we also are, because of the spectrum and base which we have of nutraceuticals, we are present also, we have our own tablet capsule nutraceutical plants, and we also have our own hygiene plants. But again, my presentation would be mostly focused on the strengths and the key growth areas what we offer. Just to mention, we have certification ranging from the basic WHO GMP to Europe, Brazil, Canada, Australia, Colombia, South Africa. The only 2 markets which are right now not of focus for us are the US and the Japanese markets. But we are hoping to get into at least the US markets down the line. But again, it's too soon for me to elaborate on that. So let us focus on the strengths as such of the company right now. Of course, like I said, it's an ever evolving process for us. So here we also have, displayed here a future prospect, and that is where, keeping in mind the certain geographical countries which we are entering, the product pipeline which we have, we feel, and that's why we are going to enter, of course, on the basis of board approval, two more. We're going to set up two more dedicated, I would say, large capacity factories, again dedicated to anti-infectives, and they will be regulatory on par with our existing, I would say, factories, and also maybe help us enter maybe the US market down the line in the next 3 to 4 years. So this is where we also have mentioned here what is the future prospect in terms of the infrastructures which we are planning to invest into. Sorry, this is a repetition, but just to show the regulatory capability, and I would say, the entire gamut of Gufic strength. We have been audited by Europe 2 times. Of course, in this time of COVID, also we have been, had been, giving up products, and we got fast track approval in certain specific countries also. But again, to clarify, we have a presence now planned for all countries in the world, specifically at least 62 countries in the world, except US and Japan for the time being, for critical care products. To just give you a perspective, what we mean in terms of our entry, it's not just having, we really have a game plan behind every entry. In Germany, when we entered with our partners for launching clarithromycin injection, we have ensured in the last 3 years, we have become almost close to a 68 to 70% market share player in the German market as per the IMS data. Even for vancomycin, we have reached close to 45 to 46% market share holder, along with our partners for vancomycin for the German market. So that is the plan when we have that, because of the economic of the scale, because of the basket, at least the product which we enter into, we at least come into the top, few players of that molecule in the particular country. Pretty soon, we will be sharing our news about Brazil and Canada. Of course, we already have announced in the last 1 year about some product approvals in these specific countries apart from Russia. And specific, I would say, product approvals will be shared with everyone as in the due time. Again, another thing which is very close to my heart is, botulinum toxin is something which we want you to share with all of you all. In India, we are, as what I have been told and what I have read, we are the first Indian company to actually make botulinum toxin from scratch, of course, with an American collaboration with Dr. Balram Singh, who is also a fellow director at Gufic Biosciences. And this is something very proud of, because, to handle a toxin is quite a complex matter. And especially when you talk about a toxin where 1 teaspoon can kill the world, it's something which I'm very proud of my team, that we have been able to not only stabilize that, standardize that, and at the same time also come up with an approach of, I would say, not only the conventional dosage form, but also come up with a, form of, I would say, topical, and also down the line we are also working on different forms of, I would say, botulinum toxin, which give an option, or which we give an advantage to our, doctors, not only in India but abroad, which for treating certain neurological condition, or treating certain sports condition, or certain facial aesthetic conditions, which can be little bit more, I would say, challenging with conventional therapy. So the botulinum toxin as a whole is our focus going forward because of the American collaboration, and we feel that with the drug pipeline which we have, we really have a strong, I would say, a way forward. Just to give you some numbers, botulinum toxin type A, which is the only injection which is approved around the world, is contributing to 6.5 billion. It's totally a 6.5 billion US dollar market. In India, currently it is not much more. Stephen, am I audible? Because I feel I'm just getting some messages. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible. You may proceed.
Oh, okay, fine. So, as I was saying, botulinum toxin market as such is something which we are very keen around. In India, I feel the penetration of this market is still in a very neonatal or an infant stage. Most of the companies who are present in India are mostly either importing the product or are, marketing the product for some, I think, big MNCs. Allergan continues to become the big player with their, it's the biggest player, and I have a lot of respect for them with their Botox, which they have created and done a wonderful job. We feel as an Indian company with a basic manufacturing and a good pipeline, which is very theoretically, I would say, which is therapeutically placed well, we can become a strong player down the line. This will be one of our aces up our sleeves in the times to come. So that's why I spend a little bit more time on the botulinum toxin. However, I'll move on to the next slide. This is just a slide which shows you our geographical presence around the world. Right now, like I said, we have also details about product-wise country representation. If anyone has any questions, I can maybe take it up down the line. Currently, like I said, we believe that the Indian market itself has a lot of potential. And that is shown in our growth in the last, I would say, 6 years from 2015. When we came into the Indian market in a full-fledged marketing approach, we were ranked 165, and now we have come to a rank of 86. Of course, a majority of that growth has been contributed by our critical care and the critical life products. It's not just that we are mostly in the critical care medicines. There have been brands which have been specifically launched, which have been catering to certain unmet medical needs, where we have launched certain fungals or certain antibiotics or now immunomodulator for the first time in India with our own patent, which has made a difference in terms of addressing an unmet need, either in terms of a pandemic or maybe in terms of just a normal tough tough fungal infection to treat. So of course, critical care is our main growth driver, and that is because of backed up with an excellent manufacturing facility and a pipeline. But we feel that down the line, with the new drug delivery systems coming in again in critical care, we are here to launch many more products in the pipeline. Again, in anti-infective, in cardiac, in neurology, in even in, I would say, total parental nutrition. So overall, anything which were restricted in the ICU setup, we are trying to go beyond the ICU setup, which helps us to take care of this particular therapy. Infertility is something which also is a legacy business in terms of the CMO, as I'm saying. When we started off in 2008, we were into, I would say, strong contract manufacturing of these infertility products. But there were certain products which we wanted to launch for the first time in India, and that is where we thought our entry in the front end into this marketing would be a difference. So now, of course, we are pan-India, and being one of the largest manufacturers of certain infertility hormones, it gives them an edge when we launch some new drug delivery systems, certain transdermal products or certain oral, I would say, new hormones coming in, which synthetic hormones coming in, which help to again meet some unmet medical need. Gufic's Spark is just a name Spark given to our division where we are mostly focusing on pediatrics and general physicians. We have our brands like Redol and Stretchnil pregnancy stretch mark cream, and also we have a lot of new launches specifically in this field of kids immunity. Talking about the COVID wave, which normally experts are expecting down the line that the third COVID wave will be much more oriented to kids. That is where we have certain pipelines and certain products which we are focusing on. Our fourth division, of course, is the nutraceutical division. This is more of a legacy division, which was actually even before we sold our brands. We sold our brands in '98 to Ranbaxy. This Sallaki brand of ours was a part of this, I would say, space, and that is where our Sallaki brand, which is helping in osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis, has been the main player. Apart from India, of course, we sell this brand to Germany and Switzerland also, but it's mostly to do with the clinical data and the actual research which has gone beyond it, which makes it a truly prescribed brand as such. So Sallaki is a part of this Gufic Healthcare. Then we have just launched two divisions specifically in the last year. Even though it was a pandemic year, we had plans in 2019-20 to launch Stellar and Aesthaderm in India. Stellar is a division which has been launched specifically for gynacs and orthopedicians. There we again have certain nutraceuticals and certain, I would say, new drug delivery system products which are coming in, which are specially catered to orthopedicians. Again, all the range from arthritis to tendonitis to all the way to their basic pain management. We have that basket going on. And in terms of gynac, being strong in, I would say, infertility, we thought it much makes sense for us to enter into the gynac space where we offer, solutions for pregnancy, which is, all the way we don't help people just produce kids, but in the process of producing kids, we help them to ensure that the entire pregnancy beyond fertility is much more optimum and much more taken care of. So that's why this Stellar division was envisioned, and we have launched for the first time a triple combination of a new type of folic acid known as quadrifolic, which makes our basket a little bit more exciting. Aesthederm, of course, is like I already spoke to you. Aesthederm is a division which is catering to facial aesthetics and also to skincare. Our brand name of our botulinum toxin is Stanox, and that is where we have launched Stanox as part of the Aesthederm division, and that's going to be, I would say, our flagship product as such. And I have a lot of, like I said, on a personal way, I have a lot of ambition and I have a lot of, I would say, expectations from Stanox, and that is why I feel Gufic Aesthederm as a division, along with our products with tie-up from the French company Lucas Meyer, we have come up with serums and face washes and creams and all that. That will play a big role in the times to come. Of course, COVID has not been very kind in terms of the division of infertility and Aesthederm. However, these are the divisions which should take us forward. I believe, Stephen, there's a little bit of a background noise. Should I continue or wait?
You can continue, sir.
Okay. So even though the COVID scenario has been a little bit unfair to infertility and Aesthederm, I feel these two divisions are the way forward in the Indian domestic growth. And I have, like I said, I have a lot of expectations because we are completely backward integrated. We have an excellent product pipeline and a product basket coming on, and we have solid plans for them. So this is in not the 8 divisions, like I say. Why I mentioned 8, you can see 6 main divisions, but we have 2 offshoots coming in because we have so many products in critical care and infertility that we have actually made it more, I would say, precise by making 2 subdivisions in those things to make it more precise to customers. So all our products can get an equal focus and an equal, standing in front of the medical doctors. This is just a summary of all the space which we are entering. So anti-infectives, antifungals, I don't need to read through all of them, but keeping in mind what I've already shared in the last slide, we have a wide range at the same time focused approach on certain therapeutic indications which we are focusing on. Just one mention for the slide here. Down the line, we have being into biotechnology all these years now, as of course as a academician, being an academics. But now in terms of commercial thing, there is certain immuno-oncology products which we are trying to work on, which is very interesting and exciting. So the immuno-oncology space and the biological space will be the way forward for Gufic, which will again complement our critical care and our, I would say, onco space going forward, because conventional chemotherapy is great and it has a lot of advantages, but we have also a lot of new immuno-oncology therapies being developed, and which I feel somewhere should be the future, and that will help a person recover in a much more better way, physically, mentally, without having much side effects. Of course, this is what I am discussing is almost a 4 to 5, 6 year visibility for us, because it includes the complete phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. This is just a glimpse of what we want to get into as a company down the line, keeping in mind our core competency and our knowledge self. Again, for all this, what we have done, we always believe that Gufic has strength, but of course, it's incomplete without having certain, strong partnerships or in-licensing arrangements, and that is why we want to mention all our partners all these years who have been strongly responsible for our growth. All the way from Prime Bio, who has helped us for the botulinum toxin project, and of course the new drug delivery systems which will come for botulinum toxin. Then with Sinagen, who's helping us with biologicals and certain, high-end, I would say, recombinant products. Lucas Meyer, of course, is our partner for our cosmetics and the Aesthederm division. So we have a lot of. So right now we're into skincare and we're into facial aesthetics, and now we're getting into hair care down the line. So a lot of ingredients have been sourced with collaboration from the French company, and we have a strong pipeline to get us through there also. And Brigene, one of the best companies I think I have worked with in the last 10 years, who have helped us year over year deliver I would say outstanding and new products, and maybe made us for the first time in India, or maybe just the first generic in India with a strong I would say patent backing. So these are just some mentions which I wanted to talk about, and that is where our in-licensing and partnership always makes sense for a company of our size, because we can always complement our core competency to certain applications and make it more commercially viable. This is just a summary We have been, like I said, we are now almost 1100 field force. We have a strong warehousing capabilities. We have a solid structure all around India, which makes us more or less, I would say, a national player in India. And of course, we are a national niche player, which someone tells us, but we hope that we can become a national, I would say, multi-specialty player, which is our target in the next 2-3 years. Apart from just being, I would say, in terms of being infrastructure, we are backed up by, of course, solid IT systems and, of course, something which is very basic for big companies. I think it's a big step for us, of course, getting SAP implemented in this year. We hope that before the end of the year, we are fully set up with SAP, and that will be just one of the, I would say, things to take us to the next orbit. And we are also looking at a lot of automated processes in terms of field force, MIS reviews, and I would say just access, like geofencing, geotagging is just some few things which we do to ensure that we get the best. So we don't have so many resources as the big companies have. So whatever minimum resources or limited resources I would like to put up, we try to ensure that we are monitoring them more regularly, and we're trying to extract the maximum out of a single rupee. And that is where this Salesforce automation and the MIS reviews and the software which we normally use helps us to do that very efficiently. These are just, so like I said, our history and our legacy and our roots are in contract manufacturing. We'll never go away from that. Today we are what we are is because of our excellent partners and our excellent clients, and they have helped us to reach this scale, and we hope to serve them more and more in the future. And with our robust pipeline, with new solutions, so we feel that as a company, we are working on many things in our R&D. We cannot commercialize each and everything what we make in our R&D or we envision. And that is why we need these strong front-end players and strong pharma companies to help us get those R&D or get that, I would say a dream or a vision into a reality. So that is where these companies play a big role in helping us make certain products, launched where we might not be very strong in the market space, and they maybe justify it much more than us than what we can. So that is why we feel CMO is going to be strong. In certain areas, we'll also try to be the front player to launch certain things, but we always feel a big brother helps us to make more noise and take it forward. So again, thanks to these wonderful people who have supported us all these years. This is just in a nutshell. It talks about our R&D capability. Everyone nowadays needs to. Any pharma company without a strong R&D has no relevance, according to me, and especially a company of our size. We have to be very specific in terms of the resources which we have and focus on things which we know should have limited, chances of failure. So, we in the short span, of course, we have got several patents. We already have filed. It's mentioned 4 years, but we are almost in the process of filing. We have already filed 6 patents, which we should get some good news in the next 2 years because of the data we have submitted. And like I said, the product pipeline which we have are very skewed for all the strengths which we have. So anti-infective to oncology to antifungal. So anti-infective, critical care, infertility, again, the same gynaec also. So we are very focused. What we do, we want to get into specific products, new drug delivery systems, and little bit, I would say noticeable different products which make us address an unmet issue. Apart from, of course, lyophilization, liposomal products, I would say depot injections, nanoparticles and dual chamber bags and dual chamber syringes are something which has a new drug delivery system which we feel we have a lot to offer, and also to offer in a way which is commercially viable also, because it should not happen I have a normal meropenem injection and I come up with a new drug delivery system which makes my product unaffordable. So that's not the case, and that is where we feel the new drug delivery system in a cost, I would say commercially efficient manner should take us through. We have our own now in-house medical clinical trial team. We apply to DCGI, and we are hoping our Immunocin Alpha very soon should get approved with the data which we have. So let's see. So it's a continuous process, and we feel that we can offer new and new molecules thanks to this entire infrastructure which we have. Like I said, API is a capability going forward, and that is where we have invested in the last 2 years to increase the capacity and come up with a robust pipeline. And again, I feel going downwards, most of our entry into API is not just as a distraction. Our entry into API is sort of a backward integration, and we want to focus on certain, I would say, products where we want to be very independent of any geopolitical issue or any, I would say, other price brand, because we believe in entering into tenders, into a relation which are long term with the European partners and partners around the world. So we cannot even absorb volatility in this segment, and that is where being backward integrated will always be the way forward. So that is where, like I say, more of the API revenue going out will be more of a backward integration, which will help us to be independent. Again, this is just a summary slide. This is, I believe, my last slide, just to summarize what I have been discussing in the last few slides, and I'll of course hand it over to Roonghta sir for the finance point of view. But for me, it's always been about focusing on certain things where you can go really deep and get into certain segments and certain therapeutic indications where you can make a difference with either a scale or a pricing, or I would say in terms of a product basket or a drug delivery system. And that is where our India business or international business or CMO business will all be dependent on. And with the API, I think delivering in terms of backward integration, we know that we are going to sustain for a long time. So scale in both way, and also sustainability is the way forward for us. And that's why we feel we're going to be here for a long time. So that's it from my side. I will hand over to, of course, Roonghta sir to, of course, show you the financial highlights of this year and take it forward. Thank you. I'll mute myself.
Good afternoon, myself Devkinandan Roonghta. I am basically a qualified chartered accountant. I am associated with Gufic from last 3 years. Before joining the Gufic, I was working with VK Birla Group for more than 30 years, having a lot of experience in the field of finance. Now, first thing I would like to inform you that the Gufic Life Science has been merged with Gufic Bioscience from the appointed date of 1st January 2019. All the financial results are the merged figures of Gufic Life Science and Gufic Bioscience for the financial year 21, as well as the corresponding figures of last year. The total sale for this quarter, Q4 quarter of 2021, was 131 crores. Last year Q4 sales was 87 crores. There is a growth of over 50%. Year to year, last year current year April to March 21, the total sale was 487 crores. Last year it was 379 crores. There is a 28% growth over the last year. EBITDA margin has been increased from previous year. There was 15% EBITDA margin. Current year the EBITDA margin has increased to 18%. Profit before tax has been increased from 30 crores to 57 crores over year. Profit margin has been increased from 8% to 12%, and debt to equity ratio has been reduced from 0.9 to 0.3%, and operating cash flow has been improved from 47 to 89%. All these financial results has been shown that there is a good growth over year to year from this year. Now I am presenting the highlights of the last few years. If you see the revenue from last four years has been given an average annual growth of around 18%, which we believe that it will be continuing in near future also. EBITDA margin has been continuously improving over last 4 years. Net profit is also continuously increasing. आगे का slide. ROE has also been increased, and ROC is more than 35%. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. To ask a question, you may click on the Q&A icon and click on the Submit Request button. The operator will announce your name when it's your turn to ask a question. Please accept the prompt on your screen and unmute your microphone while proceeding with your question. If you wish to ask a question on chat, you can type your question in the text box and disable the request to talk slider. Then click the submit request button and your question will be picked up during the Q&A session by the operator or the presenter. We will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first is a text question from the line of Guru Datta Kamath from Kamath Investments. The question is, can you please disclose some numbers around for botulinum business, your sales number for Feb and March 2021? How big is India's botulinum market and what market share we want by 2024-25? Thank you.
Dr. Saab, can I take this? All right. So am I audible, Stephen? Can I start?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So I think thank you for the question. Just to give you a perspective, botulinum toxin market, like I said, internationally is 6.5 billion, but you will be surprised that the Indian market is not more than 120 crore. So when this question comes to me a lot, that when you have a market only of 120 crores, what makes you so confident about it? So before I answer that, I'll just tell you, so as stated, we have launched the division in the month of January. So the February was the first month which we have got the sales done. We launched 100 IU as the injection Stanox, and we feel that February, March are the only 2 months which we sold the product, and the sales which we have done, because I believe it's more of a primary, so I would not look much more into the number. The actual secondary numbers should come up now in June or July, but of course I will disclose in my first quarter result. But I would say that the first 2 months in terms of the primary, we have done approximately 2 crores in the 2 months. But again, like I said, it's more of a primary figure, and I foresee that this number should have more relevance when we have the secondary thing. Also, because of the lockdown partway in April, the actual, I would say, effect should be seen by August and September 2021. To again answer your question, I feel this 120 crore market is just waiting for, there's a big opportunity for us to go beyond this 120 crore market. Reason being, the same, I always compare the Aesthaderm market with the infertility market. Infertility market in 1990s was in the hand of a few doctors. There were a few people whom, if someone wanted to go for sort of I would say IVF, then there were only few players who were controlling that, and the price was very high in terms of the acquisition or maybe in terms of the treatment. We feel in India, our responsibility would be, and that is where we will take at least 2 to 3 years. In the next 2 to 3 years, we have to create this awareness and try to get more users. You will, the thing which actually pushed me to getting into the market, there are a lot of people who say, I want to get a botulinum toxin treatment done, but I don't know where to go. Oh, is it safe? Are the doctors equipped enough? Do they have the right infrastructure? And that is where we feel India is on that graph where you can have that big, I would say, penetration going on, and where I feel Gufic will play a big role. The question would come that Allergan, who has been a $6.5 billion global player, why couldn't it do it in India? I have no answer for that, but I have an answer that that $6.5 billion US is something which attracts to me, and when I put this 1.3 billion people of India, I feel there's a huge, I would say, thing to be encashed on. And it's not that since the reason I am very bullish is because we are making it from scratch, where I know the profitability. So I know how much money is available from me to actually invest in the development of this market. So I will be, me and my team and all of us will be really breaking our backs to create this market, and I'm sure it's going to be big. With the new injections coming down the line and also a topical option coming down the line, we feel that a lot of people who are scared of injections will have an alternate route which is not available globally also. A topical botulinum toxin is still not available commercially globally, and that is where the first fear of injection should go away, and we should have more and more people getting it. 1.3 billion has an amazing, I would say, buying capacity in terms of the people there, and I foresee the market to not only arithmetically grow, but I would say to grow exponentially in the next 3 to 4 years. Again, please don't ask me for numbers how the market will grow, but we have certain internal numbers where we see that botulinum toxin should become a significant part of the Gufic's revenue operations going forward. Apart from India, we are trying to get this product also to the rest of the, I would say, our neighboring countries, Southeast Asia, then of course to South America, and eventually to certain regulated markets. So that is what we see. We should get a sort of a pie also of that market down the line. So that is my question. I hope I have answered it to the best of my, interest. I hope Mr. Kamath is satisfied. We can go on to the next one.
Thank you. We have the next audio video question from the line of Nitin Gosar from Invesco. Please go ahead. Mr. Nitin Gosar, your line is in talk mode. Kindly accept the prompt and go ahead with your question, please. Mr. Gosar, if you can unmute your line from your end and proceed with your question.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Sir, if you can help us in terms of breaking the business in terms of different segment, where you explained about the way of doing business, but could you share more insights in terms of revenue, what each business represents? I'm not sure if you have given this in past, but I couldn't figure it out in your annual report. On that. Second question is, as we stand today, could you help us with the insights in terms of right to win for the fertility care business? What are the things you got it right, and because of which you have been able to position yourself in the fertility care, and what are learnings you can extrapolate to this botulinum market, because even this kind of market is a specialty care and it will require a different approach. What kind of doctor access we have in this market? Is it a different set of field force or your existing field force which will be able to crack into this doctor pool? These are the three questions to start with. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitinji. I think answering your first question, which is about the revenue breakup. So, of course, like I said, since 2015, we have evolved from a CMO to a domestic player, and of course, then exports and others have started kicking in the last 4 to 5 years. To give you a sort of a percentage, I think our domestic operations are around 55%. Our exports are around 15%. Our CMO business is around 25%, and our API business, as of now, in terms of revenue, with whatever we have, is around 5%. So we foresee that the exports should eventually, of course, scale up a little bit faster because of the different registrations coming in. But domestically, still will be the way forward where we will take it forward. And like I said, the CMO with new product pipeline, there'll always be a specific place for CMO, which will always, for the new product pipeline of the new, I would say, molecules, it will be the way forward. So that is, I hope I have answered your question one to your satisfaction. Yeah. Coming to your second question in terms of fertility. So what we said, when we entered the fertility market, we found that we were very late because they were already stalwarts and were doing a wonderful job. So we did an analysis that what do we miss as a company. So we said either there's a strong hormonal player or there is a strong, I would say, progesterone player, or there's a strong, maybe some nutraceutical player. So all of them have taken some space in the market, and we feel that when we go to a fertility specialist, we have to offer this entire basket. At the same time, like I mentioned for botulinum toxin also, infertility at one time was only accessible to some people. So some people had to go through 1 cycle, 2 cycles, 3 cycles, and there are very few people in India. I would say there are, of course, India has many people for anything, but I'm saying there's still very few people who will eventually, will get drained out after the second cycle in terms of the expense which is there. So we have been trying to get in touch with these, big centers and big, I would say, infertility people to come up with, I would say, therapies which are more commercially viable, where and also maybe make them more accessible. So certain molecules which a doctor would try maybe in the second or third cycle, we try to get them that make it more affordable in the first cycle, so the chances of pregnancy go up much more. And having the entire basket, for me, going to a center, going to a doctor, they always feel that it's better to back up let's say something to trigger over and back it up to maintain the I would say trigger also. We can use products from the same Gufic basket, which makes it more viable and convenient for them. So I would say, in a nutshell, a product basket, a cost-efficient way to increase the chances of the fertility, and also to come up with a solution. Now, of course, there was a challenge which I faced when we entered in 2016 in infertility. We realized that the recombinant product, which is recombinant FSH, is something which is not as a part of a basket, and that is doing a wonderful job. And I feel that's the future. But right now, most of the hormones which are coming from female urines from a particular province in China, and that is where we felt our difference, that we have to start working on a sort of a basket where we are focusing on the recombinant approach, which makes us more independent again from China or from other factors, when we can produce the quality and the yield and everything much more efficiently. And that is the way forward for Gufic now. So this is a challenge in which I felt I failed to read it, and now we are rectifying that going forward. I'm saying so because if we want to sustain in this, we need to be part of this recombinant wave going forward for pricing and for sustainability and for supply also. So that is what we have learned and we have evolved down the line. Coming to your third question about botulinum toxin. So like I said, we have gone for a very specialized approach. Approach of a critical care or infertility or a mass marketing cannot apply to a Aesthaderm market. An Aesthaderm market requires these special, highly trained people. We have right now only 33 people all India, but they are very highly trained. We train them for almost 1.5 months. Of course, a session of 20 days and then again a refresher session once again. Because when you go and talk to a doctor about a toxin which can actually potentially kill them, you have to talk to them about science. You have to talk to them about the dose. We had to do a trial on 100 people to convince them that this is a marketed available leader. This is our product where we are showing you it's safe, it's effective, it's giving you the same results. At the same time, we are ready to offer you a basket in terms of more product basket. We are also able to give you more options. We're able to give you maybe a topical option down the line, and we are here to stay for a long time. So that is where, again, I'm saying it's been only 3 months now, or 3 to 4 months now. It's a long way to go. But when, again, a basket approach, a strong independent Indian manufacturing approach, and also a quality approach in terms of that should be the way forward, with a very specialized team and headed by a specialized person who has in the past sold a similar toxin, and he knows who is the catchment area and which doctors to focus on, and who are going to be the leaders, and who are going to be the followers whom we have to create. And we have to make dermatologists to become, a gynaec always want to be an infertility specialist, because they get their flexible timing and they know that it's much more better for them to in the next career. That way our main focus is to make dermatologists into cosmetologists and facial aesthetics experts, which will make that exponential growth in the market. So that's from my side. I hope I have answered your 3 questions in my...
No, very well, sir. Very well covered.
Yeah.
Thanks. If you can add 2 more questions. One is wanted to understand if we were to draw a profit cycle, a wave where it starts from the bottom, then it matures, and then there is a tipping cycle of profitability. And if I were to overmap the 4 divisions that we have, could you touch upon which division falls into which part of the cycle, like domestic, CMO, international, API?
Yeah. So again, maybe I'll just tell you gross margins, that will help us to understand. So we can involve that, we were earlier a sort of a API cum CMO partner who moved into a domestic space, and now we're going to complement that with a export space. So that is how we have seen the evolution of margins going on, which can be seen by the person. Again, Gupta Saab will be in a better position to explain the margin increase, but to give you a perspective, a CMO business is a 30% gross margin business. Gross margin, again I'm saying. API is almost like a 35-40% market because of the product line which we are in. Of course, with the new APIs coming in, which are a little bit more sophisticated, small volume, high value, the margins might be more. Coming to the domestic space, a domestic space is around 55 to 60% gross margins, and I would say our export would be around a minimum 60% margin share, because there are no other, I would say, overheads involved otherwise in exports, which a domestic market would actually normally dictate. So I'm not discussing the dossier cost and the other costs, R&D costs, which still go below. These are just gross margins I'm talking about. So that you have seen this 30, 35, 40% margin gradually being pushed to a 55, 60%, and then now you have a 60% component of exports coming in. That is what we feel should make the margins evolve down the line.
Got it. Perfect. And so last one would be trying to understand FY21. That would be a year when most pharmaceutical companies would have seen some kind of savings on their promotional spend. Would you
Yes.
like to quantify what kind of savings we would have seen, which would be one time in nature and may not reoccur, and may reoccur going forward?
I think very good question, and I would like I say, I'm very frankly, we had a budget in place, which we had at the end of the year. We spent only maybe around 75 or 78% of that budget on admin cost, very frankly. But that was still overseeded by our incentive cost because two of our divisions did a wonderful job, and that's why whatever there was a huge incentive outflow because of these divisions doing a fabulous. Because at one time in the April to June quarter 2020, we really didn't know how the year would evolve because of the lockdown in place. And then once we bounced back in the last three quarters, we directly had a saving in there were no traveling, no meetings, no MIS reviews, everything was virtual, which helped and all that. But I foresee that is to a reason because of our other divisions also did not go through. But because of the incentives and other things driven, we shot over in two of the other divisions, which got compensated. So I still feel maybe 10% to 15% of our actual marketing cost was not caught up last year, which should now come back to normal. Hopefully this year. Let's see how the pandemic progresses.
Got it. Perfect, sir. This was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have the next audio video question from the line of Arpit Agarwal from Electrum Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir, and thank you for a very detailed presentation. I have a couple of questions. First, on the bottling side, as you said, this is one of the most exciting projects for you. We did some channel checks with a couple of dermatologists, and one point which they said is that skincare being a very sensitive subject, people are very careful on what they would like to put on their screen. On their skin. Just wanted to understand how do you approach this because to grow and they also said that Allergen is a very evolved player, and the service after sales service are also excellent. So just want to understand how will you overcome this. And second, on the same product is, other than the skincare, what are the opportunities in neuro and other therapies?
So, Arpitji, very good question. But like I said, in this forum, after sales service is something which I don't understand only. So I will not answer that right now. So, but answering just on the lighter side, I'm saying. But just to tell you in the perspective, I feel, and that is my personal opinion. Please take it as it is. If Allergan was such a strong player in India, and the amount of penetration which if Allergan did, then botulinum toxin would not have been a 120 crore market, right? So if Allergan, the same company Allergan, can go to a country like a Thailand and a Vietnam and to a Philippines and maybe countries which are similar, I mean, even for that matter, some countries in Africa, I still feel that they have not even touched the tip of the ocean in India. And the amount of potential which we as a country offer, I think somewhere something is amiss because $6.5 billion internationally and 120 crores in India. I don't feel Allergan. Again, I have a lot of respect for them. They have given a beautiful product and the history and all that. But I still feel there's a huge potential going forward. Coming to your next point and your observation, which is absolutely right and which I really like, is today why we have entered into the aesthetum division or the facial aesthetic division is because the loyalty of these patients is very high. Unfortunately, Gufic is not strong in diabetes or cardiac or something where you have loyalty for lifetime. So the next thing after antibiotics and after arthritis products and after I want someone who uses my product for at least a minimum of half a year or a year or something like that, which is possible in other arthritis or in facial aesthetics or skincare. And I fully agree. The initiation and the first entry, it's a challenge. But that is where Stanox will help us to overcome the challenge. Stanox will be the anchor, or the botulinum toxin will be the anchor product, which will help us to create this market much more. And then, I can ride my other products of serum and, face wash and cream or whatever the new chemical sunscreen we are coming with, all that around it, So I feel there is a challenge, but a huge opportunity also because of the sheer population size which we have. And again, I'm saying, Stenox and botulinum toxin potential. I feel, I hope I can prove it in the next few years. My team can prove it in the next few years. I think 120 crores is nothing. It's nothing what India deserves for this molecule. That should be much more. So I look at it as an opportunity, and I feel this brand royalty angle will also be a big, I would say, positive thing for us going forward, rather than a challenge right now. So this is what I feel. This is the way forward for us. Create the market rather than take the market share. Taking the market share will not help us. We'll be mostly creating a market which will be much more long term for us. And again, I'm saying after sales service is all fine. All that is okay. It's okay. That's it from my side. I hope Pitchi, I've answered it rightly.
That was quite a comprehensive answer, and I think you're right. I was also surprised when I looked at the global numbers and the Indian number. It's like, and with the young population and people getting more careful about their looks, I think this is something which should be a huge market going forward. Sir, one more thing, what is our arrangement with Prime Bio? Is it like tech transfer, or is there some royalty element involved which is linked to sales?
Yeah, so already there is already a upfront fee which we already have paid for the technology of Type A and Type E. There is a profit share which we have for them because we have a considerable decent margin coming out of this product, and that is also only possible because we make it from scratch in India. So I'm not dependent. The arrangement is such a way that I have got the actual Clostridium botulinum seed strain, the master cell line, to India, which is an asset of Gufic going forward, and that is how we are creating these products from them. And for every sale, there is a profit share which goes back to them. And also, I forgot to answer your question on about neurological and sports injuries. I just have seen it in my book right now. So yes, you rightly said, apart from facial aesthetics, we are getting into, I think by September we are launching the other brand name for our neurological division. And also there are a lot of other, I would say, therapies in terms of sports, in terms of also not only neuro but certain pain management also, which we are working on as other applications for botulinum toxin. The other reason I got attracted to this molecule is, apart from facial aesthetics, there are almost 130 other indications which is officially approved for botulinum toxin, and there is no other product which can replace botulinum toxin for the next at least 1 to 2 decades in those particular therapeutic conditions. It's just a question of awareness going forward. Sorry, I interrupted you. Please, I would like to
No, that's interesting. And sir, like you have so many growth drivers in place. You have launched so many divisions, and I think it's quite an exciting bouquet of divisions and products which you have. If you can just give us some color on how have you expanded the team bandwidth in terms of what kind of people are there on board to drive each of these piece, or are you planning to hire some more senior people around? Because I think obviously a great product has to be marketed well and taken to the market. So to achieve scale, I just want a little more color on the team of various businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, Arpitji, talent and also experience is always welcome in this sector. So it's not that something we go for, but of course, to give you in terms of, I would say, quantitative first, and then I'll come to qualitative next. Quantitative, we have evolved from a field force of maybe around 250 people in 2015 to around 1100 people in 2021. So you have seen the evolution in terms of the sales and marketing, which is very clear in terms of quantitative build-up. We have a president who has also been with us since inception, who has driven this entire, I would say, revolution of the domestic space, Dr. Das, who's done a wonderful job. He brought us from the rank of 165 to, I would say, 86 in the 6 years. Under him, we have, of course, VPs, and we have GMs, and so every division gets its own identity and its own hierarchy, and that focus. And that, I would say, that focus approach has made it more better for us to unlock value in every division. In terms of our infrastructure, being a CMO, we were always, I would say, backed up with a strong infrastructure backend in terms of my quality team, my production team, and my analysis. Because we were always handling, I would say, a quantity or a scale which is beyond our front end. So it's basically that contract manufacturing is something which I'm always thankful to, and which again I'm saying is going to be one of the biggest strengths which we have to be successful in countries abroad. This contract manufacturing helped us to understand values, get the price benefit, get a scale done, a product basket done, and that scaling automatically continues with new heads of QAs joining in, or it's not that my heads are changing. My people who have been with me for the last 10 years are evolving with us. Of course, new experts are joining us from the field below them, because my people who evolve will always stay and take it forward. And as form of a HO point of view, of course, we have seen the entry of my COO in 2000 and my COO in 2018, who has helped us to translate the international business, Mr. Nagesh. Then we have Runta sir, who has been kind enough to join us in 2019 as a CFO. Apart from that, we have a legal team, and we had a admin team which is much more strong, and now strong HR backing us up. So I feel it's ever evolving process, which is not. We always have a planning, a budget in mind, by which we have certain positions lined up for the next year. We always plan for 2 years ahead, keeping in mind what would be a requirement down the line. Like say, just take the example of IT right now. The IT division investment started almost 2.5, 3 years ago. Envisioning that we would go to SAP in this year. So, the entire hardware, the infrastructure in terms of the entire, disaster management cells to get us connected all over India, get us connected on web or on wherever. So that first we focus on the hardware, and then automatically we have the software taken care of. And then we move on step by step. So of course, I could have answered your question in many different ways. I've tried in the most precise way. I hope it has been answered correctly.
Yeah. There is one last one.
Mr. Agarwal? So sorry to interrupt, but for any follow-up, may we request you to rejoin the queue, please? Thank you. We have the next audio question from the line of Ishita Jain from Ashika Stock Broking. Please go ahead.
Hi,
Ms.
yes,
Jain,
am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are. Please proceed.
Okay, great. Thanks. First of all, congratulations on a great set of numbers this year. My question is an update on amphotericin. Is the demand still strong, and what percentage of our revenue this year, that is March 21, was the amphotericin opportunity? And my second question is on the low API revenue share. Was this mostly because we focused on backward integration and less selling it outside? And my third and final question is on the botulinum toxin. You mentioned we did a 100-patient study. Do we expect any larger study follow-up, since this is an indigenous product? And for other types, type E and O, will there be more clinical data required? Thank you.
Thanks. So, hi Ishita, I can call you that, right? Not Mrs. Jain, Miss Jain, right? So yes,
Ishita,
absolutely.
thanks.
Ishita. So Ishita, liposomal amphotericin B already was a product which we made in the last, and we were selling also since the last few years. I think what you have seen in the press right now is just a validation that we have two factories. One is the Gufic Bio and the Gufic Life. The merger actually did not come in later. So we just got an approval in the second unit. I would say last month. Otherwise, it's a product which we already are making since some time, and we were marketing it. But to specifically answer your question regarding black fungus and mucormycosis, so it was a product which was used for Candida or for other sort of, I would say, therapeutic indications. The black mucormycosis revenue has still not been captured last year, because the cases of the black fungus or mucormycosis has started coming in and cropping in around end April or early May. And that traction should be seen in maybe June and July. Again, the demand is strong right now, but like I said, there have been very challenges in terms of, I would say, the excipients. We have API, we have all that. So we are trying a level base to take care of that. We also are coming up with another solution apart from liposomal, and maybe come up with an emulsion form which can be a little bit more faster to the market. It doesn't, because one of the excipient which is used to make these liposomal amphotericin B is actually used by one of the vaccine players globally also. So there's always been this fight, we had to, the companies in India have actually used the Indian embassy to get, access to that excipient. So again, very frankly, how the COVID graph goes up and down, maybe no one knows, no one can predict that. The black mucormycosis, I can't predict how it will go and what sort of numbers which we'll see from that. But currently, if you ask me, yes, right now India is going through a tough time. And we all, not only Gufic, I think a lot of great manufacturers like me, or maybe better than me, or are also trying a level best to take care of the Indian thing, which I think we should be fine. All of us together should be able to take care of this problem in the next, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll see a lot of supply coming in, and we feel that, it should be fine and okay. Answering your next question, which was about, if I'm mistaken, was it about the botulinum toxin, or did I miss something in the middle, please?
Yes. The second question was about the low API revenue share.
Yeah,
You
okay,
mentioned
sorry.
it was 5%. Yeah.
Yeah, so very frankly, strategically, we always have been a formulation player, and you rightly said, most of the API, even though we make it, we use it in our own formulation, and that's how we have not, the revenue share of the API always has been a very small component for that. However, going forward, as I mentioned in my management reports in the last 2 years or 1.5 years, there are certain molecules which we also have started working on, which maybe not used by us in that quantity, but might be important for us to serve India or maybe some other clients in Europe or other places, because they are right now dependent on China and they want some other player to de-risk themselves. So maybe in the next 2 years, you will see us, you might see a boom. I mean, you might see a little bit increase in the, I would say, revenue of API. But since the formulation focus always will be there, I don't foresee the API business to, get to around more than 10% of the total revenue going forward, because formulation has that more scalability in terms of our approach than the API business. However, as the things evolve, I think we can maybe share more and more news to you as per how the R&D pipeline works. Coming to your last question about botulinum toxin, yes, definitely. The 100 patient, very frankly, if you ask me why the 100 patient trial was done, because my people who actually sell the product should be convinced that when I'm going as a Gufic product of Stanox, and I know these 4-5 big doctors who have used Stanox, they certify it that this is a safe, efficacious, and I would say at par product, if not better than Botox. But going forward, what I feel that we have been advocating. You won't believe the amount of free sampling which we do, even though it's an expensive material, but since we can make it in-house, we have that advantage of pricing. But we want big and big. We already have I would say, a format where we ask certain high-end products, I mean high-end doctors of Bombay, Delhi, but in Baroda even. I'm just naming cities, but you can know the top, I would say 15, 16 cities where our 33 people are present to actually use us first. Moment they use us, we say we are ready to give you this product free, only in the condition that you endorse and you give us a proper format of use and a sort of a trial report, whereas you have used it on XYZ patients and you have found the product to be suitable for that. So going forward, the trial will be our way forward to ensure that we get more, I would say, confidence generated and belief generated in the end user, and along with that, our own field force also who can make more noise about it. So yes, trials will be an ongoing process till next 3 to 5 years, because that will help us to become really serious. And even we are using a lot of samples to actually train people. A lot of dermatologists are coming, and we have now training centers which we are going to set up in 2-3 parts of India, at least 2 parts of India, where let's see how the pandemic goes. But people come online. We have trainers, specialized trained under top-notch doctors who will train these dermatologists to become actually users of botulinum toxin. And that is how we see this expansion and this progress should go on. And with the type E and the topic coming in, it's going to be a DCGI approved process. So of course, we'll be going through the entire process of phase 1, phase 2. I mean, starting from preclinical phase 1, phase 2, and to phase 3. But there'll be a robust clinical pathway for the products coming out. So yes, we will have a lot of clinical evidence and clinical data available to share with all of you. I hope I've answered your questions.
Yes, got it. Just one follow. Just to clarify, you mentioned that the DGCI mandated trials they are going to start soon, or are you in process of doing them?
So in terms of the type E and the topical, we already have started one, and we are in the process of submitting the next one, and that's all I can say.
Understood. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have the next audio video question from the line of Rohan from Manija. Please go ahead. Mr. Rohan, if you can unmute your line from your end and please proceed with your question.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah. Hi, Pranav. Thanks for your detailed presentation and congratulations on a good set of numbers. My question pertains to any possible capex that would be required to support these new forays into the new markets that we are making, and also would you require to fund that possible capex through more debt, or would internal accruals be used? So if you could just give some color on that, that would be great.
Sure. So thank you, Rohan. Of course, I'll try to answer the debt and the internal accruals in my most efficient manner. Otherwise, Rohita Saab can back me up because he knows the cash flow is much more better than me. But still, what we have discussed and what we have planned, at least I'll share with you. as you rightly said, and what we showed also in our PowerPoint presentation, we feel. I mean, remdesivir was just an eye opener for us because we saw a lot of capacities being utilized for that. But the way we have seen the critical care industry evolve, not only in India but in countries abroad, and the consumption which we have, and healthcare overall becoming more accessible and more, I would say, available for people around the world. We feel that one more, I would say, unit of lyophilized injectables is something which we want to get into, where we have certain plans in mind, keeping in mind certain geographies which should pay out in the next 3 to 5 years. So yes, we will be going for a capex for again our generic pipeline along with the anti-infective pipeline, which should only help us to increase the infrastructure available for our existing product basket and a product pipeline coming forward. So we are looking at definitely a capex of a substantial quantity in the next 2 years. I feel currently the cash flow which has been coming in the last 2 years should be okay with us to take care of it. If required, there is a possibility of going for certain of the debt, which is in today's time. I think it's quite good in terms of the percentage what we see. Also, Government of India has actually come up with a new segment where we are seeing a little bit more aggressive pricing coming in terms of the cost of funds. So we already are in touch with banks, but internally we want to keep at least a 30 to 40 crore cash reserve with us at any time. So anything which we want to go beyond that, we might take some term loan to take care of these capex going forward. Otherwise, I think keeping the current cash flow in mind, we should be hopefully okay between internal accruals plus debt to some extent, to debt, I would say, to take care of that same.
Thank you. We have the next text question from the line of Vishal Manchanda from NBI. The question is, what is the cost of botulinum toxin per patient? Thank you.
I hope you're asking me the cost which is which the patient has to pay, right? Not the cost what I am making it. So if to answer that question of how much is to the patient, the MRP is around 15,000 for 100 IU, and the entire therapy along with the doctor. Of course, there are different doctors charge a different thing, but for me we sell a vial of 100 IU for around 15,000 to 16,000, which takes care of around 3 to 4 patients over. So normally either use it on 20 IU out of the 100 IU is enough for a patient which needs to take care of maybe 2-3 procedures on his or her face.
Thank you. We have the next audio question from the line of Romil Jain from Electrum Portfolio Managers. Please go ahead. Mr. Romil Jain, if you can unmute your line from your end and please proceed with your question.
Yeah, Pranav sir, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Romil, how are you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I am fine and hope the Gufic family is doing well in this scenario. Thanks for the opportunity and thanks a lot for hosting this meet. And I really hope that we can continue this going ahead. My question is on the group company that has been merged. So what kind of capacity do they have on the vial side, on the lyophilized capacity, and what can be the revenue at peak?
Sure. So I'll just tell you about the capacity. The Gufic Biosciences, the parent company, had a 1.6 billion vial capacity per month in terms of 10. We always we standardize the answer in form of a 10 ml vial, which is a normal average vial. And the new facility, which is Gufic Life Sciences, which has been merged into the parent company, had a capacity of 2.4 million. So totally we now have a 4 million or a 40 lakh vial capacity per month. And I believe your next question was sorry, can you please repeat the next question?
Yeah, no, so I think the capex guidance has been answered. I think you said there will be substantial capex over the next 2-3 years to support the growth. The other question from my end is, on the various molecules that you are kind of developing. So I just want to understand what would be the timelines and the opportunities size for the same. In terms of revenue. So where I'm coming from is basically I just need a vision from your side, maybe in the next 3 to 4 years, where can we hit growth, in terms of growth or, any specific revenue sense that you can get from the various projects that you are undertaking. Thanks.
So again, I will answer you in a more macro level, but just to say, because every product has a different market size. Some, like I say, botulinum toxin, I cannot give you a number because I can't extrapolate on 6.5 billion. I neither can extrapolate on a 120 crore. But at the same time, yes, we normally take certain products which have that scalability in terms of the ease of use. So they have to be a primary infection service holder, or at least we don't go beyond a support therapy. It cannot be scalable. But to give you in a nutshell, all these product pipelines which we have in terms of anti-infectives, infertility, aesthetics, and of course gynac ortho, we are looking at anything between a 15 to 20%, I would say, year-over-year growth as a combined now consolidated merged entity. So that is where we feel that the pipeline what we have plus the organic growth which will come from the existing pipeline should be able to get us to a 15-20% growth. Of course, 21-22 will be a little bit different year because of the COVID pandemic in terms of, because there are certain products which might just see a sudden rise, in terms of revenue. But I'm saying overall, very naturally and in a very normal scenario without a pandemic, a 15-20% is something which we see should be something which we should target.
Thank you. We take the next audio question from the line of Dhruv Shah from Ambika FinCap Consultant. Please go ahead.
Hi Pranav, hope you are doing well. Congratulations on a good Q4. I just have one question on your depot. Depot is actually a very tough injectable, right? And only innovators are there in the market. No generic has been able to succeed. So in that field, what are you planning? And is it just a CMO or are you planning to develop yourself as well?
So hi Dhruv. So yes, so the depot injections I'm referring to is of course those I would say peptide injectables which are normally of two technologies, either a microsphere of a PLA, PLG, PLA. But again, I would say the Indian manufacturers, of course, there are now along with the 2-3 others also who have been able to backward integrate a good, stable, I would say scalable form of the same. Yes, it is complex, which makes our interest in the molecule much more. And we foresee that, with combining the not just depot, which has been there for some time, but when you combine this depot with a new drug delivery system, that is the thing which we are harping on and aiming for. So depot is something which we are selling for the last 4-5 years. But for me, the exciting thing would be the new drug delivery system, which we will try to come up with in the next couple of years, which should make it a little bit more on the edge or a little bit different what we want to get into.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraint, that was the last question. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Amisha for closing comments. Over to you, ma'am. Ms. Amisha, if you can unmute your line from you.
So, am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is Amisha, the Company Secretary of Gufic Biosciences Limited. Thank you everyone for joining this call. In case, due to paucity of time, we could not hear to all the questions. So in case of any questions which have been left unanswered, you can reach out to our team. The details has already been provided on the last page of PPT, which has already been shared to you. Thank you so much on behalf of Gufic team, Gufic family. We conclude today's conference call. Please stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Gufic Biosciences Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for your participation. You may now click on the exit meeting to disconnect.